Joy family, welcome to this joyful day here in the Joyful House, and welcome to Once Upon a Storybook. Today we are continuing the Anne of Green Gables book series, and today something exciting happens. We get to begin book number 6, Anne of Ingleside. So if you are ready, come join me for chapter 1 and 2. Now, unlike book number 5, where the chapters had titles, book number 6 does not have titles on its chapters, so it is just numbered. So let us begin with chapter 1. "How white the moonlight is tonight," said Anne Blythe to herself, as she went up the walk of the Wright garden to Diana Wright's front door, where little cherry blossom petals were coming down on the salty breeze-stirred air. She paused for a moment to look about her on hills and woods that she had loved in olden days and still loved. Dear Avonlea. Glen Street Mary was home to her now and had been home for many years, but Avonlea had something that Glen Street Mary could never have. Ghost of herself met her at every turn. The fields she had roamed in welcomed her. Unfading echoes of the old sweet life were all about her. Every spot she looked upon had some lovely memory. There were haunted gardens here, and there were bloomed all the roses of yesteryear. Anne always loved to come home to Avonlea, even when, as now, the reason for her visit had been a sad one. She and Gilbert had come up for the funeral of his father, and Anne had stayed for a week. Marilla and Mrs. Lynde could not bear to have her go away too soon. Her old porch gable room was always kept for her, and when Anne had gone to it the night of her arrival, she found that Miss Lynde had put a big, homey bouquet of spring flowers in it for her. A bouquet that, when Anne buried her face in it, seemed to hold all the fragrance of unforgotten years. The Anne who used to be was waiting there for her. Deep, dear old gladnesses stirred in her heart. The gable room was putting its arm around her, enclosing her, enveloping her. She looked lovingly at her old bed with the apple leaf spread that Miss Lynde had knitted, and the spotless pillows trimmed with deep lace that Miss Lynde had crocheted. At Marilla's braided rugs on the floor, at the mirror that had reflected the face of the little orphan with her unwritten child's forehead, who had cried herself to sleep there that first night so long ago, Anne forgot that she was the joyful mother of 5 children. With Susan Baker again knitting mysterious booties at Ingleside, she was Anne of Green Gables once more. Mrs. Lynde found her still staring dreamily in the mirror when she came in, bringing clean towels. "It's real good to have you home again, Anne. That's what. It's 9 years since you went away, but Marilla and I can't seem to get over missing you. It's not so lonesome now since Davy got married. Millie is a real nice thing. Such pies, though she's curious as a chipmunk about everything. But I've always said and always will say that there is nobody like you." "Ah, but this mirror can't be tricked, Miss Lynde. It's telling me plainly, you're not as young as you once were," said Anne whimsically. "You've kept your complexion very well," said Miss Lynde consolingly. "Of course, you never had so much color to lose." "At any rate, I never had a hint of a second chin yet," said Anne gaily, "and my old room remembers me, Miss Lynde. I'm glad. It would hurt me so if I ever came back and found it had forgotten me. And it's wonderful to see the moon rising over the haunted wood again." "It looks like a great piece of gold in the sky, doesn't it?" said Miss Lynde, feeling that she was taking a wild, poetic flight and thankful that Marilla wasn't there to hear. "Look at those pointed firs coming out against it, and the birches in the hollow still holding their arms up to the silver sky. They're big trees now. They were just baby things when I came here. That does make me feel a bit old." Trees are like children, said Miss Lynn. It's dreadful the way they grow up the minute you turn your back on them. Look at Fred Wright. He's only 13, but he's nearly as tall as his father. There's a hot chicken pie for supper, and I made some of my lemon biscuits for you. You needn't be a mite afraid to sleep in that bed. I aired the sheets today, and Marilla didn't know I did it and gave them another airing. And Millie didn't know either of us did and gave them a third. I hope Mary Maria Blythe will get out tomorrow. She always enjoys a funeral so. Aunt Mary Maria? Gilbert always calls her that, although she is only his father's cousin. Always calls me Annie, shuddered Anne. And the first time she saw me after I was married, she says, "It's so strange that Gilbert picked you. He could have had so many nice girls. Perhaps that's why I never liked her. And I know Gilbert doesn't either, though he's too clannish to admit it." Will Gilbert be staying up long? No, he has to go back tomorrow night. He left a patient in a very critical condition. Oh, well, I suppose there isn't much to keep him in Avonlea now since his mother went last year. Old Mr. Blythe never held up his head after her death. Just hadn't anything left to live for. The Blythes were always like that. Always set their affection too much on earthly things. It's real sad to think that there are none of them left in Avonlea. They were a fine old stock. But then, there's any amount of Sloanes. The Sloanes are still Sloanes, Anne, and will be forever and ever. World without end. Amen. Let there be as many Sloanes as there will. I'm going out after supper to walk all over the old orchard by moonlight. I suppose I'll have to go to bed finally, though I've always thought sleeping on moonlight nights a waste of time. But I'm going to wake early to see the first faint morning light still over the haunted wood. The sky will turn to coral and the robins will be strutting around. Perhaps a little gray sparrow will light on the windowsill, and there'll be gold and purple pansies to look at. But the rabbit has ate up all the June lily beds, said Miss Lynn sadly, as she waddled downstairs, feeling secretly relieved that there need to be no more talk about the moon. Anne had always been a bit queer that way, and there did not any longer seem to be much use in hoping that she would outgrow it. Diana came down the walk to meet Anne. Even in the moonlight you saw that her hair was still black and her cheeks rosy and her eyes bright, but the moonlight could not hide that she was something stouter than in years agone, and Diana had never been what Avonlea folks called skinny. "Don't worry, darling. I haven't come to stay." "As if I would worry over that," said Diana reproachfully. "You know I'd far rather spend the evening with you than go to the reception. I feel I haven't seen half enough of you, and now you're going back day after tomorrow. But Fred's brother, you know. We've just got to go." "Of course you have, and I just ran up for a moment. I came the old way, Di, past the Dryad's bubble, through the haunted wood, past your bowy old garden, and along by Willowmere. I even stopped to watch the willows upside down in water, as we always used to do. They have grown so." "Everything has," says Diana with a sigh. "When I looked at young Fred, we've all changed so. Except you. You never change, Anne. How do you keep so slim? Look at me." "A bit matronish, of course," laughed Anne. "But you've escaped the middle-aged spread so far, Di. As for my not changing, well, Mrs. H.B. Donnell agrees with you. She told me at the funeral that I didn't look a day older. But Mrs. Harmon Andrews doesn't. She said, 'Dear me, Anne, how you failed.' It's all in the beholder's eyes or conscience. The only time I feel I'm getting along a bit is when I look at the pictures in the magazines. The heroes and the heroines in them, well, they're beginning to look too young to me. But never mind, Di. We're going to be girls again tomorrow. That's what I've come up to tell you. We're going to take an afternoon and evening off and visit all of our old haunts. Every one of them. We'll walk over the spring fields and through those ferny old woods. We'll see all the old familiar things that we loved and hills where we find our youth again. Nothing ever seems impossible in spring, you know? We'll stop feeling parental and responsible and be as giddy as Miss Lynn really thinks me still in her heart of hearts. There's really no fun in being sensible all the time, Diana. My, how like you that sounds, and I'd love to, but there are not any buts. I know you're thinking, who'll get the men's supper? Not exactly. And Cordelia can get the men's supper as well as I can, if she is only 11, said Diana proudly. She was going to anyway. I was going to the ladies' aid, but I won't. I'll go with you. It will be like having a dream come true. You know, Anne, lots of evenings I sit down and just pretend we're little girls again. I'll take our supper with us. And we'll eat it back in Hester Gray's garden. I suppose Hester Gray's garden is still there. I suppose so, said Diana doubtfully. I've never been there since I was married. Anne, Cordelia explores a lot, but I always tell her she mustn't go too far from home. She loves prowling about the woods. And one day when I scolded her for talking to herself in the garden, she said she wasn't talking to herself. She was talking to the spirit of the flowers. You know the doll's tea set with the tiny pink rosebuds that you sent her for her 9th birthday? There isn't a piece broken. She is so careful. She only uses it when the 3 green people come to tea with her. I can't get out of her who she thinks they are. I declare in some way, Anne, she's far more like you than she is like me. Perhaps there's more in a name than Shakespeare allowed. Don't grudge Anne Cordelia her fancies, Diana. I'm always sorry for children who don't spend a few years in fairyland. Olivia Sloane is our teacher now, said Diana doubtfully. She's a B.A., you know, and just took to school for a year to be near her mother. She says children should be made to face realities. Have I lived to hear you taken up with the Sloanishness, Diana Wright? No. I don't like her a bit. She has such round, staring blue eyes like all that clan. And I don't mind Anne Cordelia's fancies. They're pretty, just like yours used to be. I guess you'll get enough reality as life goes on. Well, it's settled then. Come down to the Green Gables about 2 and we'll have a drink of Marilla's red currant wine. She makes it now, and in spite of the minister and Miss Lynn, just to make us feel real devilish. Do you remember the day you set me drunk on it, giggled Diana, who did not mind devilish as she would if anybody but Anne used it. Everybody knew Anne really didn't mean things like that. It was just her way. We'll have a real do-you-remember day tomorrow, Diana. I won't keep you any longer. There's Fred coming with the buggy. Your dress is lovely. Fred made me get a new one for the wedding. I didn't feel we could afford it since we built the new barn, but he said he wasn't going to have his wife looking like someone that was sent for and couldn't go when everybody else will be dressed with an inch of her life. Wasn't that just like a man? Oh, you sound like Mrs. Elliot at the Glen, said Anne severely. You want to watch that tendency. Would you like to live in a world where there were no men? It would be horrible, admitted Diana. Yes, Fred, I'm coming. Oh, all right. Till tomorrow then, Anne. Anne paused by the Dryad's bubble on her way back. She loved that old brook so. Every trill of her childhood laughter that it had ever caught, it had held, and now seemed to give out again to her listening ears. Her old dreams, she could see them reflected in the clear bubble. Old vows, old whispers, the brook kept them all, and murmured of them. But there was no one to listen save the wise old spruces in the haunted wood that had been listening so long. Chapter 2. Such a lovely day made for us, said Diana. I'm afraid it's a pet day, though. There'll be rain tomorrow. Never mind. We'll drink its beauty in today, even if its sunshine is gone tomorrow. We'll enjoy each other's friendship today, even if we are to be parted tomorrow. Look at those long golden green hills, those missile blue valleys. They're ours, Diana. I don't care if that furthest hill is registered in Abner Sloane's name. It is ours today. There's a west wind blowing. I always feel adventurous when a west wind blows, and we're going to have a perfect ramble. They had. All the old dear spots were revisited. Lover's Lane, the Haunted Wood, Idlewild, Violet Vale, the Birch Path, Crystal Lake. There were some changes. The little ring of birch saplings in Idlewood, where they had had a playhouse long ago, had grown into big trees. The birch path, long untrodden, was matted with bracken. The Crystal Lake had entirely disappeared, leaving only a damp, mossy hollow. But Violet Vale was purple with violets, and the seedling apple tree Gilbert had once found far back in the woods was a huge tree peppered over with tiny, crimson-tip blossom buds. They walked bareheaded. Anne's hair still gleamed like polished mahogany in the sunlight, and Diana's was still glossy black. They exchanged gay and understanding warm and friendly glances, and sometimes they walked in silence. Anne always maintained that two people as sympathetic as she and Diana could feel each other's thoughts. Sometimes they peppered their conversation with "Do you remembers?" Do you remember the day you fell through the cob duck house on the Tory Road? Do you remember when we jumped out at Aunt Josephine? Do you remember our Stony Club? Do you remember Mrs. Morgan's visit when you stained your nose red? Do you remember how we signaled to each other from our windows with candles? Do you remember the fun we had at Mrs. Lavender's wedding and Charlotta's blue bows? Do you remember the Improvement Society? It almost seemed to them that they could hear their old peals of laughter echoing down over the years. The AVIS was, it seemed, dead. It had petered out soon after Anne's marriage. They just couldn't keep it up, Anne. The young people in Avonlea now are not what they were in our day. Don't talk as if our day were ended, Diana. We're only 15 years old and kindred spirits. The air isn't just full of light. It is light. I'm not sure that I haven't sprouted wings. I feel just that way too, said Diana, forgetting that she had tipped the scale at 155 that morning. I often feel that I'd love to be turned into a bird for a little while. It must be wonderful to fly. Beauty was all around them. Unsuspected tintings glimmered in the dark dimensions of the wood and glowed in their alluring byways. The spring sunshine sifted through the young green leaves. Gay trills of song were everywhere. There were little hollows where you felt as if you were bathing in a pool of liquid gold. At every turn, some fresh spring scent struck their faces. Spice ferns, fir balsam, the wholesome odor of newly plowed fields. There was a lane curtained with wild cherry blossoms, a grassy old field full of tiny spruce trees just starting in life and looking a little elvish, things that had squatted down among the grasses, brooks not yet too broad for leaping, star flowers under the firs, sheets of curly young ferns, and a birch tree whence some vandal had torn away and the white skin wrapper in several places, exposing the tints of the bark below. Anne looked at it so long that Diana wondered. She did not see what Anne did. Tints ringing from purest creamy white through exquisite golden tones, growing deeper and deeper, until the inmost layer revealed the deepest, richest brown, as if to tell that all birches, so maidenlike and cool exteriorly, had yet warm-hued feelings. The primal fire of earth at their hearts, murmured Anne. And finally, after traversing a little wood glen full of toadstools, they found Hester Gray's garden. Not so much changed. It was still very sweet with dear flowers. There were still plenty of June lilies, as Diana called the narcissi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. The row of cherry trees had grown older, but was a drift of snowy bloom. You could still find the central rose walk, and the old dike was white with strawberry blossoms and blue with violets and green with baby fern. They ate their picnic supper in a corner of it, sitting on some old mossy stones with a lilac tree behind them, flinging purple banners against a low-hanging sun. Both were hungry, and both did justice to their own good cooking. "How nice things taste outdoors," said Diana comfortably. "That chocolate cake of yours, Anne. Well, words fail me, but I must get the recipe. Fred would adore it. He can eat anything and stay thin. I'm always saying I'm not going to eat any more cake because I'm getting fatter every year. I've such a horror of getting like Great Aunt Sarah. She was so fat she always had to be pulled up when she sat down. But when I see cake like that, and last night at the reception, well, they would all have to be so offended if I didn't eat." "Did you have a nice time?" "Oh, yes, in a way. But I fell into Fred's cousin Henrietta's clutches, and it's such a delight to her to tell all about her operations and her sensations while going through them, and how soon her appendix would have burst if she had not had it out. I had 15 stitches put in it. Oh, Diana, the agony I suffered. Well, she enjoyed it if I didn't. And she has suffered, so why shouldn't she have the fun of talking about it now? Jim was so funny. I don't know if Mary Alice liked it altogether. Well, just one teeny piece may as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. I suppose a mere silver can't make much difference. One thing he said, that the very night before the wedding, he was so scared he felt he'd have to take the boat train. He said all grooms felt just the same, as if they'd be honest about it. You don't suppose Gilbert and Fred felt like that, do you, Anne?" "I'm sure they didn't." "That's what Fred said when I asked him. He said all he was scared of was that I would change my mind at the last moment like Rose Spencer. But you can never really tell what a man may be thinking. Well, there's no use worrying over it now. What a lovely time we've had this afternoon. We seem to have lived so many old happinesses over. I wish you didn't have to go tomorrow, Anne. Can't you come down for a visit to Ingleside sometime this summer, Diana? Before I'll not be wanting visitors for a while?" "I'd love to, but it seems impossible to get away from home in the summer. There's always so much to do. Rebecca Dew is coming at long last, of which I'm glad. And I'm afraid Aunt Mary Marie is too. She hinted as much to Gilbert. He doesn't want her any more than I do. But she is a relation, and so his latch string must be always out for her. Perhaps I'll get down in the winter. I'd love to see Ingleside again. You have a lovely home, Anne, and a lovely family." "Ingleside is nice, and I do love it now. I once thought that I would never love it. I hated it when we went there first, hated it for its very virtues. They were an insult to my old house, my dear house of dreams. I remember saying piously to Gilbert when we left it, 'We've been so happy here, we'll never be happy anywhere else.' I reveled in a luxury of homesickness for a while. Then I found little rootlets of affection for Ingleside beginning to sprout out. And I fought against it, I really did. But at last I had to give in and admit that I loved it. And I love it better every year since. It isn't too old a house. 2 old houses are sad. And it isn't too young. 2 young houses are crude. It's just mellow. I love every room in it. Every one has some fault, but also some virtue. Something that distinguishes it from all the others. Gives it a personality. I love all those magnificent trees on the lawn. I don't know who planted them, but every time I go upstairs, I stop on the landing. You know, that quaint window on the landing with the broad, deep seat? And I just sit there looking out for a moment and say, God bless the man who planted those trees whoever he was. We've really too many trees about the house, but we wouldn't give up one. That's just like Fred. He worships that big willow south of the house. It spoils the view from the parlor window, as I've told him again and again. But he only says, would you cut a lovely thing like that down, even if it does shut out the view? So the willow stays. And it is lovely. That's why we've called it our place, Lone Willow Farm. I love the name Ingleside. It's such a nice, homey name. That's what Gilbert said. We had quite a time deciding on a name. We tried out several, but they didn't seem to belong. But when we thought of Ingleside, we knew it was the right one. I'm glad we have a nice, big, roomy home. We need it with our family. The children love it too, small as they are. They're such darlings. Diana slyly cut herself another sliver of the chocolate cake. I think my own are pretty nice, but there's really something about yours. And your twins, those I envy. I've always wanted twins. Oh, I couldn't get away from the twins. They're my destiny. But I'm disappointed mine don't look alike. Not one bit alike. Nan's pretty, though, with her brown hair and eyes and her lovely complexion. Di is her father's favorite because she has green eyes and red hair. Red hair with a swirl to it. Shirley is the apple of Susan's eye. I was ill for so long after he was born, and she looked after him till I really believe she thinks he is her own. She calls him her little brown boy and spoils him shamefully. And he's still so small you can creep in to find if he has kicked off the clothes and tucked him in again, said Diana enviously. Jack's 9, you know, and he doesn't want me to do that now. He says he's too big, and I love so to do it. Oh, I wish children didn't grow up so soon. None of mine have got to that stage yet, though. I've noticed that since Jim began to go to school, he doesn't want to hold my hand anymore when we walk through the village, said Anne with a sigh. But he and Walter and Shirley all want me to tuck them in yet. Walter sometimes makes quite a ritual of it. And you don't have to worry yet over what they're going to be. Now, Jack is crazy to be a soldier when he grows up. A soldier? Just fancy. I wouldn't worry over that. He'll forget about it when another fancy seizes him. War is a thing of the past. Jim imagines that he's going to be a sailor, like Captain Jim, and Walter is by way of being a poet. He isn't like any of the others, but they all love trees and they all love playing in the hollow, as it's called, a little valley just below Ingleside with fairy paths and a brook. A very ordinary place, just the hollow to others, but to them, fairyland. They've all got their faults, but they're not such a bad little gang, and luckily there's always enough love to go around. Oh, I'm glad to think that this time tomorrow night I'll be back at Ingleside, telling my babies stories at bedtime and giving Susan's calceolarias and ferns their meed of praise. Susan has luck with ferns. No one can grow them like her. I can praise her ferns honestly, but the calceolarias, Diana, they look like flowers. They don't look like flowers to me at all. But I'll never hurt Susan's feelings by telling her so. I'll always get around it somehow. Providence has never failed yet. Susan is such a duck. I can't imagine what I would do without her. And I remember once calling her an outsider. Yes, it's lovely to think of going home, and yet I'm sad to leave Green Gables too. It's so beautiful here, with Marilla and you. Our friendship has always been a very lovely thing, Diana. Yes, and we've always, I never could say things like you, Anne, but we've kept our old solemn vow and promise, haven't we? Always, and always will. Anne's hand found its way into Diana's. They sat for a long time in silence, too sweet for words. Long, still evening shadows fell over the grasses and the flowers and the green reaches of the meadows beyond. The sun went down. Gray, pink shades of sky deepened and peeled behind the pensive trees. The spring twilight took possession of Hester Gray's garden, where nobody ever walked now. Robins were sprinkling the evening air with flute-like whistles. A great star came out over the white cherry trees. "The first star is always a miracle," said Anne dreamily. "I could sit here forever," said Diana. "I hate the thought of leaving it." "So do I. But after all, we've only been pretending to be 15. We've got to remember our family cares. How those lilacs smell. Has it ever occurred to you, Diana, that there is something not quite chaste in the scent of lilac blooms? Gilbert laughs at such a notion. He loves them, but to me they always seem to be remembering some secret, too sweet thing. They're too heavy for the house, I always think," said Diana. She picked up the plate which held the remainder of the chocolate cake, looked at it longingly, shook her head, and packed it in the basket with an expression of great nobility and self-denial on her face. "Wouldn't it be fun, Diana, if now as we went home we were to meet our old selves running along Lover's Lane?" Diana gave a little shiver. "No, I don't think that would be funny, Anne. I hadn't noticed it was getting so dark. It's all right to fancy things in daylight, but—" They went quietly, silently, lovingly home together, with the sunset glory burning on the old hills behind them, and their old unforgotten love burning in their hearts. Well, thank you so much for joining me for these first 2 chapters of book number 6. I hope you enjoyed the start to this storybook adventure, and I continue to look forward to exploring book number 6 with you. But until then, be joyful, live your joy, and I will see you next time. Bye!